Welcome to Drop the Shades, the space where we dim the noise, quiet the chaos, and reclaim our inner balance.
Welcome back to another episode of Drop the Shades. The question today is, what do you do when you suffer years of physical and emotional abuse at the hands of your own mother? And how do you turn that into a successful and productive and a meaningful life? Dr. Robert Bleck went all the way to earn a degree in counseling. He got a PhD in counseling to delve into that, to be able to help others, to be able to deal with that level of trauma, and has been able to help many, many people to overcome all forms of trauma in their past. And we're going to dive right in. Welcome, Dr. Bleck.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here with you and your audience. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. So, Dr. Bleck, we're going to kind of dive right in to look into your background and the experiences that helped inform your decision to go into counseling.
Sure. Starting out, my life starting out was really painful and difficult for me. At about the age of 3, my mother began to beat me, degrade me, and humiliate me and shame me what seemed about every day. Now, her beating, sometimes she would hit me with her full fist. I was just a little boy, a little body. She would hit me in the face, wherever she could reach. Sometimes she'd do it with an open hand. And other times she would use whatever object was near her, whether it was a shoe. She loved hitting me with a big wooden kitchen spoon. It seemed bigger to me at the time because I was little. She would hit me with a belt. She liked the buckle because it would hurt more. And whatever she could find, she would hit me with, an object on a desk or in the kitchen. She also got creative with her abuse. I remember one time I was having a nightmare and I went into my parents' room. I was between 3 and 4. I went into their room for some kind of comfort. And what she did, she grabbed me forcefully by my arms and pulled me back to my bed. And she began to tie me to the bed with ropes. The ropes went under the bed and across my chest. And again, I was just a little boy. I was terrified. In my mind, I was going to be killed. I was going to get murdered, basically. So I was terrified and scared. As a result of all of that abuse, I anxious. I bit my nails. I had nightmares and night terrors. I was terrified of the dark. I slept with my light on in the room until I was a teenager. So again, it was really painful those years as I think about it and as I talk to you. But I did survive them. And at the age of 9, and I remember this distinctly, I began to develop a really deep compassion and empathy and sympathy for those who struggled or suffered in life as I did. Whether it was a child I saw being bullied at school, or it was an injustice I saw at school or on television or read about, whether somebody suffered a loss, a grief. I was troubled by that, and I was very sad about it. And that was sort of the foundation. It was sort of the foundation that put me on a path saying I wanted to help in some way humanity, and I wanted to help you out there. And I survived the beatings that continued, and the degradation. And I went on to get a PhD, first my bachelor's in psychology, and then a PhD in counseling. And what I did after graduating with my PhD, I went on to work in schools and clinics, and then I became a professor at a university to teach graduate students how to become therapists and counselors. And I also opened up a private practice at that time. And I was getting referrals from people who were really emotionally scarred as I was. And they asked me, would I see them in my practice? And I said yes, and I worked there for a while with seeing, and the referrals kept coming. But I wasn't satisfied with the long-term healing that I wanted from the people I worked with. I don't think any therapy that I attended or that I was working with, I was trained in many therapies, didn't go deep enough, and it wasn't comprehensive enough to get that long-term permanent healing that I wanted. So over time and with a trial and error, I saw what worked, what didn't work, and I put together a 3-phase therapeutic process that was successful. So using that therapy, it's called source completion therapy, I was able to heal thousands of people, including myself. I went through the program myself. Because the therapies that I had gone to, again, as I said, wasn't deep enough for me. I knew I had anger inside. I didn't trust, and I still had nightmares. So I knew that I had to go deeper inside. What happens, if you don't mind, I'd like to just start at the beginning of life. What happens when someone is abused, especially a child? What happens?
Sure.
So how this is all put together. So we're all born, the way I see it, and what experience has shown me and life has shown me, that we're all born basically pure, innocent, and just bursting with sweet potential. It's just, that's the way it is. The essence of us as a baby, the essence of you is perfect when it was born.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So I love babies, so I could hold a baby all day and be totally satisfied and fulfilled. I love the purity. It brings tears to my eyes. So, anyway, in fact, when I'm around friends that have babies now or relatives, they all say, "We'll give the baby to Bob. He's going to want to hold it." So I take the baby. I could hold it literally all day, and I have, and I just feel so complete and fulfilled. The purity is just amazing for me. Now, here's the tricky part. Even the skin smells delicious. I smell the baby's skin. I just love the scent of it. So here's the tricky part, though. What happens is innocent and pure as we are, we're also dependent upon our caregivers for life and survival. We trust them to feed us when they're hungry, change us when we're soiled. We trust them to keep us safe from harm in the world. Don't put us in locked cars in the summertime. Don't let us put our hands in electrical sockets. And don't let us play in traffic. Basically, protect us. And as we get older, we trust them to encourage us when life gives us disappointments and sadness and frustration. If the opposite happens, if we're abused like I was, if we're beaten, if we're degraded, if we're demeaned, a whole bunch of negative feelings are produced. So just about everybody, in fact, everybody that I work with have these feelings inside of them. I'll just name a few. They feel worthless, inadequate, defective, something's wrong with them. They might feel insignificant, unimportant, and just not good enough. And betrayed and angry, and some have rage inside. Those are just a few of the feelings. Now, as a child cannot properly process those feelings. They're not. The betrayal is too overwhelming. The child would become schizophrenic, basically. So what our brain does as a survival mechanism, it represses those feelings, all those feelings inside, and it lets us function and survive. But what happens, and what I found in my work and life, is that these feelings begin to fester inside. Okay, what was once a method of survival, this is brewing and festering, and it turns into an emotional toxic brew, basically. Okay, as you get older, now those feelings are still inside. The subconscious wants them out. It wants to get rid of them. It's like having a bad meal and getting food poisoning. Your body wants to expel them, and it expels those poisons basically out of every orifice. Okay, it's the same thing in feelings. Your subconscious wants to push them out, because they're festering and they're toxic. And what they do, the subconscious pushes it to the surface. The conscious doesn't want to feel still. It's saying, I still want you to survive. I don't want you to feel those feelings.
It's too painful to feel.
Very painful. But they come out. So what happens is they come out in what I call diversions. They come out in obsessions and compulsions and phobias, in addictions, in panic attacks, in eating disorders. Any behavior that you adversely affects the quality of your life, they come out onto. And so I knew that if I was able to get out those feelings, I would be able to eliminate all those diversions. Behavioral therapies weren't doing it for the people I work with. It wasn't doing it for me because I just worked on the behavior. Common things like mindfulness, it was good in the moment, but it wasn't long-term care. Anything else that we do or that we use to cope, whether it's exercise or whether it's mindfulness or yoga or anything else that you might find comforting in the moment, those are external things. They don't take care of releasing the feelings. So I knew I had to develop a program that was going to do that. And that's what I did.
Right. Now, going back to this experience that you had for 6 years, right? From the age of 3 to 9, a couple of questions. Where was your dad in this whole process? And what do you think led your mother to such expressions of just pure anger and rage?
Yes, those are great questions. So I thank you for the questions. Okay, so let me go with my mother first, and then I'll get to my father. My mother was abused as a child herself. She was an athlete when she was young, and it wasn't at the time that she lived and grew up. It wasn't no norm for girls to be playing sports. She played against men. She was a great paddle tennis player. She won awards doing it. But her mother didn't like that. And her mother, you can't be doing that. It's not womanly. She kicked her out of the house. She would throw away her equipment at times. She beat my mother. And her father was passive and didn't rescue her. So my mother had a great deal of rage. And it came out on me, and I understood it. It didn't take away my pain, but I did understand it. Now, my father was my father. The last part of my therapy is to confront the person who hurt you, and give them feedback how they hurt you and what you felt and how it affected your life. So I talked to my mother and I talked to my father. My father, in answering the question, I asked, Dad, where were you? You know I was being beaten. Relatives were telling you about that. And where were you? He says, look, most of the fights I had with your mother was about you. I didn't want her to do it. I talked to her about it. I didn't know the severity of the beatings. And did I believe him? I wanted to believe him.
A little hard to believe.
It was. I said, Dad, you knew this. So he said, he didn't do anything, basically. He never stepped in. He didn't leave her. He didn't take me with him. And he didn't come in the way. In fact, sometimes when I was being tied with ropes, I remember him, because I went back in time to get that memory. He was actually helping her tie me. So he knew. But my father was a gentle man. He was a decent human being. So he would listen to me. He didn't beat me. He didn't degrade me. So I kind of accepted his answer. It wasn't the right answer. I wish he would have come to my aid and my rescue. I was helpless. I was a child, and I needed somebody to help me. So those are the two things. My mother was beaten, she was abused, and my father didn't rescue me.
Now, on the surface of all of this, I am putting myself in that kind of a situation, which obviously is not really possible. I would think coming out of that experience, I would come out not trusting a single soul in my life ever. I mean, it's the two people that you would trust the most in the world out the gate, who end up abusing you. If those people can break that element of trust, how do you overcome that? And I would think it's such an incredible barrier.
It's right. You raise a great point. And most of the people that come to me, they don't trust, and it takes them a long time to even trust me.
Yeah.
And that develops over time. When I was 9, I said that about 9, I had this great compassion. It enabled me to trust some people, but I had antennas out for being betrayed or being hurt in some way. So I didn't trust everybody. It wasn't anybody who I worked with. I was always vigilant about it or with. So I had lack of trust, but I also had compassion. So, and that helped me move through what you're talking about. So I had compassion to help others, and I trusted them when I was helping them. So it's mixed for me. That's how I would answer that.
You mentioned in your work, you mentioned having developed this great sense of empathy since a very early age, and sometimes I have trouble with that because in medical school they have classes on empathy,
Right.
and I often wonder, can you teach empathy to someone? You've got these 24-year-olds in med school, 24, 26, and they're teaching you, okay, this is how you become empathic. I have trouble with the idea that you can teach someone to be empathic. Can you help me with that?
Yeah, it's such a great question, and I've wrestled with that myself because I taught graduate students who were in their early 20s how to be good therapists and counselors.
Yeah.
I couldn't teach them techniques. I can teach them all kinds of theories and therapies. I couldn't teach them empathy. That's an internal process. I don't know where I got it. I don't know where it came from. People always ask me, how can you do that at 9 years old? I say, I don't know. DNA. I really don't know the answer to that question. So I can't really teach it.
My wife watches crime shows all the time, and I call it murder and mayhem stories. So, and so I see these interviews with murderers, serial murderers, and one thing that you immediately pick up when they are talking is a complete apathy, what you would call a lack of conscience, and obviously empathy, because when they do what they do, they have no concern for how the loved ones of the person they're hurting are going to feel.
Right.
And, not even to mention the victim themselves. So it's an interesting thing, but I've often thought about it, that empathy is an ingrained thing. So you were gifted with that at a very early age. And that is probably a key component of your success in being able to help others, I would think.
Yes, I was fortunate. Despite what my mother did to me, in some ways, it's a weird thing. In some ways, I'm grateful because it helps me be a better therapist. I have the empathy because I know what it's like for them to suffer and to be abused and to be degraded and humiliated and beaten. I know that firsthand. So I have that instinct empathy, and it helps me. It made me a better therapist. I've always said that.
Yeah, I would think it's a component of that. And my own daughter is getting a master's in clinical psychology, and she's one of the most empathic people that I know. So I know she's perfectly suited for that.
You must be really proud of her. I would assume.
I am incredibly proud of her. Let's go into source completion therapy, where you have decided, to paraphrase, in order for there to be any progress, you got to put the source of the trauma at the beginning of the process. So talk to me about that.
Sure. So it's 3 phases. The first phase I call awareness, but it's the phase of who hurt you is really what goes on in that phase. Again, a lot of people come to me, they just have the symptoms. They're not even aware where it comes from, and they say, that happened in the past. I've outgrown it, I've done it. But they have addictions, they smoke, they drink, they're on drugs, have toxic relationships. anger, they have road rage. So I know that their feelings are still in there. So I say to them in that, who hurt you? So how do I get them to figure that out? There's a couple of techniques that I use in this phase. I like them to be aware of their body language, because your subconscious is talking to you through your body very often, what you don't want to consciously be aware of. So I am aware of that, of their body. And I use dream interpretation, what's their subconscious telling them in their dreams. So let me give you an example of the body language one that I like to use. It's simple and easy for everybody to understand. I worked with a woman. She came to me in her early 30s, and she was consistently getting this rash on her body, all over her body and her face. And for a year, she went to doctors, and she was, I think, went to the hospital as well. They gave her salves, they gave her creams. I believe it was pills they gave her also. And nothing was really working, because the rashes would come back. And then, the hospital or doctor, I don't remember who exactly referred her. They knew of my work. They referred her to me. And the question I asked, one of the first questions I asked, I said, well, let's think of what I want you to do is think of under the skin and tell me what that's saying to you. That part of your body, what is it saying to you? So she said, well, no one ever asked me that question. Let me think about it, And then she's thinking for a little bit. And then her eyes open wide, and she says, wow, that is the poison that my grandfather put inside of me. When I was 5 or 6 years old, I sat on his lap, and he molested me. And it stayed in, that poison stays in me until I'm talking about it right now. So that's an example of body language, of using body language. And I'm always looking at the body. I'm listening with my eyes, basically, and seeing what their movements are. And that's telling me a lot, and that's telling them a lot, because I want them to interpret their own body language as we move along in the process. So they have an idea of how to do it. And then as the woman, we got to it, it's a grandfather, so we worked on that in the second and third phases, and the rash went away, basically. So, and other diversion she had went away as well. So
is that what's referred to as somatization, by the way?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Somatization, and whatever word you want, it's just paying attention to the body and its movements and what the body is saying. That's the
sure.
So whatever word we want to use to define it is fine with me. So
sure.
So the dream interpretation, that's also an effective technique, and there are a couple of ways to interpret dreams. I like the one that interprets dreams as every part, person, or thing in the dream is a part of you. Okay, so another woman came to me. She came to me. I think she was also maybe in her late 30s, and she was having this recurrent dream about being in front of a castle, and the castle was a huge castle, and it had these. They're not windows, but they're those openings that castles have. They didn't have, I guess, glass at the time. I don't know. But out of every orifice, we'll call them, was a weapon of war. There were machine guns, there were pistols, rifles, spears that you throw. There were bow and arrows. I think that she said there was a catapult out of one of the things coming. So they were all weapons of destruction, protection, and they were all in every window. So, and also she said that in front of the castle was this big moat, and it had the alligators, it had crocodiles, it had this big snakes, anything to eat you and hurt you and protect me. So protect the castle. So I said, okay. So I explained to her how I like to interpret dreams, and I said, suppose the castle is you, a part of you. So she thought about it for a second, and she said, wow, that's the part of me that continually wants to protect myself. I don't want anyone close to me. I don't ever want to be hurt. I keep isolated. I keep protected. And I want to make sure that I am safe. Okay, so that she was really clear on. And I said, well, who hurt you? Who do you want to be protected from? So where did that start? And she also said, before we go on further, she said, I that protected me for a long time, but I'm lonely, and I've pushed every relationship away. I would like to not be lonely anymore and alone. She got that part of her protecting herself, and that was clear. And I said, "Who hurt you when you were young?" And again, that was in this person's instance. It was her father also. He was an alcoholic. The alcohol was more important than she was. He left the family. He abandoned the family. And she says, "I never want to be hurt again like that." And that's what she said when she was young. So that gets her, and then we go through the next phase. And you have a question on that phase? I'll answer it, or I can move on to the second phase.
Well, I was gonna say it must be traumatic for your patients to revisit very painful stories and experiences like that, and so the thought of post-traumatic stress comes to mind.
Great. It's another great question. I thank you so much for your questions. They're intriguing. They're right on target, and they're stimulating, and I appreciate them. Okay. So the stress, people ask me this question at times because if they relive it, aren't they going through the same PTSD? I said, no, this is different. I take each person at their own pace. I never push them. I never rush them because I want them to feel safe with me and safe to explore what's still inside of them. Now, the reason it's not PTSD again is because the feelings are already in there, so they're having PTSD all the time. So when I want to get these feelings out, so PTSD doesn't exist anymore. That's what I want to do. That's what my therapy does. So that explains that. So it's not you're not reliving the event in the same atmosphere, and you're reliving it with somebody who you trust and who can help you, and it's healing. It's not hurtful. So that's the difference.
It's being done in a healing environment.
Excuse me, I couldn't hear that.
It's being done in a healing environment.
Correct. And again, I want to stress that I don't move anyone to the next phases or through these phases if they're not comfortable and ready to move through them. Some move faster than others, but I always respect each person's pace.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what's the longest period of time that you've had someone stay in this first phase?
On the first phase, I can't really give you the specifics on that because there's been so many people. It's just at their own pace. I don't know the longest time in terms of days or months or years.
Extending to years?
It can extend to years, yes. Usually it doesn't in the first phase. The second phase could stay for years. And second and third phase can stay for years. How long this process takes as a whole, it depends on a few things. How severe the abuse was to you, how courageous you are in looking at it and feeling it, and how courageous and committed you are to giving these feelings back to the source. So it depends on those conditions. Some do it quickly, go through it. Others take more time. Again, the time frame for me is okay. I'm very patient. In fact, I had someone say, "Bob, for years, you've been listening to me, and I go over the same things sometimes, and I've never had anybody in my life as patient as you, and I thank you. I couldn't do this work without you." So that's a reward. And then the other day, she had said that to me. So I know that's important. They were abused. They haven't felt safe until they come to me. And then we develop that relationship. So I'm very, very attuned to their pace. Again, I know how it felt to me to have all those feelings inside and to have been a victim of abuse. So I treated these people gently and with kindness and care, and they move through the process.
And the second phase?
Okay, the second phase is, the first phase we could consider more of an intellectual process. They get in touch with who hurt them, how it was done, and they could stay there for a little bit or as long as they want. And then the second phase is more of an emotional process. So, and it's more of a feeling process. Using self-hypnosis, I teach them self-hypnosis. First, I might use hypnosis. I take them through the process myself. And then I want them to be able to do it on their own. So we call that self-hypnosis. To the events and the feelings surrounding their abuse. So they're going back in time to hurt them, when they did it, where they did it. And I asked them to feel all the feelings, see all the sights, sounds, if there's any smells. You be aware of all your five senses when you go back in time and do that. Mm-hmm. What that does, this phase does, it brings those feelings right to the surface. So that's what I want them. Okay? So that's the second phase. Now, I want them to stay in that phase a longer time. So after they come out of the hypnosis and or visualizations, whatever you want to call it, I have them express what they felt, and through whatever way they want to do it. They can write about it. They could use art. I have artists who are good artists. One person had a big piece of, gets its easel paper, artist paper, whatever they work on. I'm not an artist. I can draw stick figures, but that's about it. Okay. I'm not an artist. So she took this big piece of paper and she said, okay, and she took a pen and put a dot, one little dot on the paper, on this big piece of paper. And I said, so tell me about that. She says, well, that's how insignificant I felt to my mother and father. I felt useless, worthless, insignificant, and unimportant. And
that's pretty powerful.
Yes, it is. So and this person did other things with art throughout her process, different pictures, different, all kinds of things representing the feelings and the abuse. I work with a sculptor that he drew. This gentleman used clay, and he made different people in contorted positions representing the torture that he went through. I worked with the singers, and one of the singers wrote songs about the abuse, and these are ways. So I'm using art therapy, music therapy, writing therapy. I'm taking those factors, those therapies, but it's included in my process, my 3 phases. Mm-hmm. So they can stay in this phase for a while until they're ready to move on to the third phase.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I have a question on this.
Sure.
What if your patient is living with the source of abuse and trauma and the source of the pain, as in a domestic abuse situation?
Oh, domestic abuse, yes. Well, we have to stay with this for a while because that's really hard in the present. So figure out the reason she would be with this person, and probably has something to do with her past as well. So we'd have to explore that. Usually when a person does what you described, they usually had abuse from their fathers,
So you have 2 sources of abuse, one in the past and one in the present, that is in some ways influenced because that's what they've known.
That's accurate. Exactly. So when I'm working with a person who does that in toxic relationships, could I give you an example?
Sure.
Okay, so I was working with an award-winning singer and actress who saw me on a show, and she read my book, and she said, "Would you please see me?" She called me on my office number, and I said, "Well, tell me what's going on." So she said, "Look, I'm taking toxic drugs. I've been doing that for a while. I'm in toxic relationships, and I'm having these out-of-body experiences. And I've been to a couple of therapists, and they were bad experiences. I went to the behavior therapy was one of them, and I wasn't successful. I thought I was a failure at that, so that didn't help at all. And then she said I went to a EMDR, where people's eyes are moving. I'm sure you know that one. She says that didn't do anything other than make me more anxious and more frustrated. So, and then I went to a psychiatrist, and I told him about the out-of-body experience. He says, you're schizophrenic. Let me give you medication. So I talked to her for a little bit. I says, no, you're not schizophrenic. What's going on is you are experiencing feelings that you've stored from the past that your brain doesn't want to process. So that detaches your brain. It wants to become somebody else, so it doesn't have to feel what you felt.
Right.
So what happened is I then explored. So usually it's somebody that hurt you in your life. So let's go back a little. Tell me how you were hurt and who hurt you. And again, she thought about it, and she said, it's definitely my father. He rejected me on every level, affection, verbally. He pushed me out of his life. He left the house. He abandoned me. So I felt unloved. I felt unwanted. I felt worthless, and it was painful for me. And okay, so that's the source of it. And when she went back to the source, she did that for a while. Then she decided to write letters and confront the source. And the toxic relationships that she were in that were hurting her, she got rid of those. She got rid of the drugs. And she, the out-of-body experiences left also. And she went on, and her career then began to flourish again without all these diversions. And she's leading a really productive and fruitful life on many levels. So the toxicity in the relationship was related to her father, and we got rid of that. And she went on to be really a great performer and a great talent, and now a healthy person. So
it's interesting to me because everything that I've heard so far and through my own studies seems to me that the entire brain works really hard at protecting the prefrontal cortex, the seat of our consciousness,
yes.
from feeling bad.
Yes.
So you've got the limbic system and, the hypothalamic pituitary axis, right, and all these systems working really hard to keep things under the wraps, right, brush it under the rug, so you can't form a conscious thought about it. Is that accurate?
To a point, as the ones I work with, they're able to form the thoughts because they're trusting again. They're able to form their thoughts. They're able to get to the source, and they're able to process it. So it's true to a point, because the amygdala works on the flight or fright response. So it throws the adrenaline and the cortisol, and you could be stronger, you could fight, you could run, your heartbeat feels faster. But it's no good because that could wear all your organs down. It's unhealthy. I call it the body's natural tranquilizers. They're neurotransmitters in the brain.
Right.
Those are I call them natural tranquilizers. I mean, they put you to sleep if you don't take drugs. They keep you calm and deal with life and stresses of life. But through all this PTSD and all the abuse, very often those chemicals will get depleted. Okay, and that's where antidepressants come in. The idea of those is to just, put back.
Because you're running on them?
Yes, but put back those chemicals. So there's a whole bunch of things, but you could overcome your brain's desire to protect you if you feel in a safe environment and you feel that you have someone who is healing you. So that's what I do.
That's what I meant, to the point where they come to you, because you're obviously aware that something is wrong. You know that you've been harmed.
Yes.
But the dealing with the reality of it must be so overwhelming.
Yeah. It can be, but again, I reiterate and I stress that I'm going at this person's pace. So I'm making sure they're not overwhelmed with whatever phase I have them in. And if I feel that they might be on that precipice, we stop, we go back, and maybe would go back to the first phase. And I just let it be until they're ready again. So I'm always working with the person's pace. I never push them forward. To things they can't handle. I'll point things out to them, but I don't push them.
What happens after this phase?
Okay, so we've worked in, we've gone back in time, and you've gone, and the feelings are at the surface. So some therapies, that's it. And Freud said, you just make the unconscious conscious, and then you're healed. But that wasn't enough, okay? Fritz Perls says, well, just get the awareness. That's not enough, okay? So these were fathers of my profession, but there wasn't enough. And all of the therapies that I've used or were familiar with, wasn't enough. The third phase is crucial in my process. The feelings are on the surface. I want them to give them back to the people that put them in. So I have them give feedback to the people that hurt them. So in an effective way, I have them tell the person that hurt them how they feel about what was done to them and how it affected their life. So that's basically what I have them go back to tell them. Now, I'm always asked the question, well, suppose a person's dead that hurt them like that. So I say, well, I have them go to the graveside, or they could close their eyes, visualize the person in front of them, and talk to them. Okay, so that you could do it visually. The one that goes to the grave, I had one person. This is a really, really intense case. So a young woman, she came to me again in her late 20s, maybe early 30s. She couldn't sleep on a bed, and she couldn't take showers. Okay, so I knew something, obviously, from the past was really traumatic. And she would take sponge baths, I guess you call them. She would, with sponge or soap or rags. And what would happen is we got to the point where she was starting to trust me. And when I said, who hurt you? And it was her father. He had raped her, both in the bed and the shower. Okay. So she couldn't go near there. And she couldn't have any relationships. Relationships were all, she didn't trust anybody. It was very toxic. And she went to the grave then with all this information, and when the feelings came up and when they surfaced, and she took the knife that her father used to use. He held it over her throat when he was raping her. So she stabbed the grave, and told him what he did and how it affected her. Before she did that, she had told me what she was going to do. I said, just make sure the authorities aren't around there. So she said, okay, I will do that. Okay, so, and she also brought a letter that she wrote to him, and that's part of the feedback. You could write a letter to a person. She wrote the letter. She read it to him at the gravesite, and then she proceeded to burn it, and it went up in flames, and she said, I hope this gets you in hell, is the way she put it. Okay, so she was able to use a few mediums. She used writing, and she used physical aspect of it. And then when she was finished with that process, she did it a couple of times, went to the grave. She slept in a bed. She was able to take showers. She was able to have relationships. She met a man that she cared for, who loved her, and she married him, had I believe, 2 children. And she went on to school. She got a degree in social work.
Wow.
So that's a person who was really abused, and we turned her life around for her to make it productive and satisfying. So.
Forgiveness. Let's talk about that.
Okay. I always love this topic because religious leaders favor it. Talk show hosts often favor it. I've heard them on and say, no, you got to forgive. You got to forgive to move on. I don't like that concept because when I work with a person, I want them to heal. I'm not interested that you can forgive eventually when you're healed, when all these feelings are out. If you just forgive, you say, I forgive you, and these feelings are still trapped, they're always going to come out of somewhere else. They'll come out of another person. You might forgive the person who hurt you, but you'll be on the road, you'll be rageful and get out and slice somebody's tires or whatever. Or fight over a parking spot, or gamble, or drink, or take drugs. It will always come out. So my concern is with healing the person, getting those feelings out. And if you don't do it when you're healed, it's not going to be authentic. It's not going to be genuine. It will be hollow. It will be empty, and it will leave you still with those feelings inside. So I always say, you could forgive when you're cleansed out, if you choose to. It's up to you if you want to do that. But it's not crucial in your healing. But if you want to forgive you, my own mother, I if you don't mind, I tell you what she asked me for forgiveness, basically. Yeah. Because later in life, I had given her my feedback and told her how she hurt me and how it affected me and how difficult it was for me. And later in her life, in her last portion of her life, she would say, "Look, I'm so sorry what I did to you. I regret it. And if I had to do all over again, I would do it a lot different. Will you forgive me? And will you talk to me? Can I call you?" I was finished at the time. I got those feelings out to her a while back, and I said, "You can call me anytime, Mom, and I'll talk to you. I'm open to hearing you." Did I forgive her? I accepted it. I can't forgive anybody that hurt another human being to that level.
Yeah.
I did. So, but I accepted her, and she called me, and we had some kind of relationship. So that's the best I did with that. I don't know if I forgive, because I don't know if she didn't really go into a process where she got her feelings out to her mother. So I'm pretty sure that even if she says she wants to do it all over again, it wouldn't be done. She would have to be cleansed of her own feelings. So.
And I think the word I had used earlier was performative, and also what I don't care for is spiritual bypass, which is another thing that we had talked about. And it seems like they are blanket covers without any depth or context to it. And so just saying to someone that I forgive you or being forced to, is meaningless to me. And that's why, as a general rule, I never ask for anyone to apologize to me for that very same reason. If it's not organic, it's meaningless.
I agree 100%. Obviously, I do. So I agree with you totally. And I wish these talk show hosts or religious leaders would stop doing that. It rings of falsity and lack of genuineness to me.
I think if forgiveness is all about yourself, right? I mean, if someone has traumatized you and they are gone or inaccessible, you're not really doing it for them. It's something that's internal, that's weighing you down. And so I believe that, as you mentioned, if it helps you on your path to recovery, by all means, do that. If it's just a label, has no meaning.
I agree. 100%.
So how does all this turn into an addictive behavior? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Again, you have all these feelings inside, and they're just brewing and festering. And as I said, the subconscious wants to push them out. Your conscious doesn't want to feel it. So addictions are one diversion. Phobias are another. Eating disorder is another. Addictions, they all serve the same purpose. They divert you away from the feelings that are inside. The brain is conscious is still doing that. So addiction can be anything. Addiction to gambling, addiction to smoking, addiction to drugs, alcohol, addiction to another person, addiction to sex, addiction to the internet. Whatever addiction it is, it's still a diversion. And that means that always telling me you have issues inside, feelings inside that need to be processed and cleansed out of you if you want to live healthy. Because if a behavioral therapist just works on the addiction, let's say the gambling person that throws the dice and keeps throwing it until they lose their house, their home, their family, they don't care at that point. They're just, rationality goes out the window. You have to get those feelings out first, and that will cleanse, the versions will go, they will diminish, and that's what they do. So that's why all three phases of my therapy are all important. You get that out, the addiction goes away, and so will the phobia, so does the eating disorder. So does the night terrors, nightmares. I don't have them anymore. So,
this is all very interesting to me because I ascribe to Buddhist philosophy, and one of the tenets of that, and as I'm sure you're aware, is and this is what our conversation reminds me of, is embracing the suffering and not pushing it away. And this is all reminiscent of that to me, is when you are suffering and when there is something that is festering, as you had termed it, inside of you, you have to embrace it lovingly and address it. And it's almost like a child that is still living inside of you, whose emotional growth has been stunted at a particular point in time.
Yeah, that's basically exactly what it is. Yes, you are stunted, and you're stunted because your brain shuts down basically, and it takes a lot of energy to keep these feelings suppressed and repressed. So yes, that's exactly what happens.
And you are so, well entrenched in these ideas and these practices. You went on to write a book. Tell me about that.
Right. So the book, sure. The book, it's called "Give Back the Pain," and it describes the therapy, and it's done through all the stories of the people I worked with. Again, they're disguised to. I don't give their names or anything because I'm not allowed to. So, but it's all of these stories. Like I told you a few this morning. Stories are told, and then I do the teaching of the 3 phases, and it's a self-help book, so people could start using it themselves, and start at the beginning process of healing. So again, give back the pain. That's exactly what you're doing in the 3rd phase. You're giving all those feelings that surfaced. They come to the top, and you are telling the person who hurt you with all those feelings. So in the book, that's it, basically, in a nutshell.
And you have another one coming up called "Who Hurt You?"
Yes. Well, actually, it's I wrote the manuscript. It's a what do you call it? Redoing, updating to give back the pain, adding some chapters, finishing some things that I wanted to put in it that I didn't the first time around. And so we'll see. I have the manuscript written, and we'll see where that goes. But I'm working with some people that perhaps could help me with that.
One of the last topics I want to talk about is, there is another well-known book out there called "What Happened to You," which is kind of a play on a commonly used phrase, what's wrong with you? And so Oprah and I believe he's a clinical psychologist, has written this book as a way of looking into the neurobehavioral aspect of dealing with trauma, childhood trauma, and all of that. How does your technique compare or contrast to what they describe?
The neuro. So you're talking about the physical part of it, the
Yes.
chemicals, chemistry, that kind. Okay, as I explained, I touched on it that I think there's these 3 neurotransmitters in your brain that are responsible for keeping you calm, keeping you able to deal with stress in life, and keeping you energized for life. When trauma is perpetrated on you, those chemicals start to decline, they diminish, they get depleted, and that results in depression and intense anxiety disorders. And then medication, and there's many medications that they keep improving them all the time, that regenerate those chemicals. So a person who is, I see, really depressed, and I recognize that right away, they really can't do my process to its full extent, because they're not able to. They can't. It's hard for them to function and to think, to cognitively be aware, to be able to go back and process painful feelings. So the medication would be an important tool for them to use, and I approve of it. I support it. If they're depressed or have anxiety disorders. That could be a great tool, and I've seen how it works in tandem with what I do. Because once their mind gets clear and their chemistry is back to somewhat normal and functioning, they can concentrate on what I'm saying, and they can concentrate on the process, and they're able then to go back and feel the pain the emotional pain. So it's really important, that chemistry. You know, I work with it all the time with the people I deal with.
Couple of tough questions for you. You said that your history of trauma, one of the ways it manifested itself was anger. Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, I can. You just brought it to mind. So if I was frustrated, if there was traffic a lot, and I was stuck in traffic, I would pound the dashboard at times. Okay. At times I would get, so I have a little road rage there years ago. That was really years ago before I went into my own process, but I would be angry. If I was playing a sport, I remember playing this in grad school with my mentor, and I would lose a point. I played racquetball at the time with this professor. I would just be really angry. I would maybe curse, and I would be intense. And that was anger that doesn't belong on the court. It doesn't belong with the professor I'm playing with. So I knew it belonged with my mother. So again, when I put it back to my mother, I'm not in road rage anymore, and that anger isn't coming out. And even with my wife, I would when we first got married, I tend to be angry, impatient, and I had to work at that. And that when my feelings came out, my anger subsided, and I'm calm. You know, I'm calm with everybody, basically.
Another tough question for you. Do you consider yourself healed?
I do. I don't consider myself totally evolved. I think that's a lifelong process. So I'm healed from the emotional trauma and physical trauma I was victimized by. But I'm always evolving. I'm always learning, even from the people that I work with. I learn something just about every day. I'm open to it. And there's always something to learn, I think, from life, and joys to incorporate. And yeah, so I'm not totally evolved. I don't know if any of us ever get there, but I'm on a path. So that's how I do that.
That's wonderful. One of the concepts that is now common knowledge is this whole idea of neuroplasticity. And for the longest time there was this idea that you're only born with this certain number of neurons, and what you get is what you get, and if you lose any of them, too bad. And our brain has this remarkable capacity to regenerate, relearn, and rewire certain circuits. And it really makes me wonder if the process that you use really works on that level on the brain.
It's such a great question, and you didn't know. You're not. I don't believe you're psychic. So, but that's a great question, because there's a little bit of a chapter on that in my new book, the new manuscript. So I put that in there. Yeah, it does. It does. It brain is kind of rewired once you get all those feelings out, and then you could be open to the joy and the magic that life, can hold for you. Because I think life is magical when you release those feelings, and it could be wonderful. And it takes you back then to when you were innocent and pure and open to everything. When you look at a child who is first born, their eyes are always wandering and looking around and just curious about everything. So I want to get them back to that stage where they're curious about life and they feel that life could be joyful for them. So yeah, it's neuroplasticity, and like I said, it's another chapter in my book. So the new one.
I will be looking forward to that. It reminds me, I just did a podcast with another guest who is pregnant with her first child. And she knows we have 5 children. And she said, well, do you have any advice for me? And I said, I only have a single piece of advice, 2 pieces of advice. Number 1, try as hard as you can to build a house of love.
That's great.
That's it. What if a child feels loved and trusting in the first 5 to 7 years of life, that will pretty much determine the course of their life. Those are such important years in the wiring of our brain and the circuitry and all of that. And so I said, if you can't do that, do whatever you can to build a house of love, and you'll be done. You'll be fine. You can't go wrong. And don't listen to other people's advice beyond that.
You're right, though. That's what I believe the same thing. Love and safety and protection and guidance, and that's crucial. And the first few years of a child's life is the most crucial, yes. People are abused, they can be hurt and abused as adults in different situations. But it's if they feel loved, they could deal with it and they can cope with it in a healthy way. So.
It's foundational.
Correct. It is foundational.
Dr. Bleck, you are still currently in practice, well over 3 decades of clinical practice, and you're still seeing patients. How do people find you?
Okay, so the best way to find me is my website. Simple, Robert Bleck. That's BLECK.com, and that's my website. It has all the information about my book, what I do, about me, and it has the office phone number if you want to reach me, my email. Everything is on that website. Everything about me and how to reach me and contact me, and more about the book, Give Back the Pain, is on there as well. So that's the best.
That's great. I'm looking forward to that. Dr. Bleck, thank you so much for your time. This has been such an amazing and insightful conversation. And I'm sure if we continued, I could come up with another, 50 questions to ask you. Maybe on another podcast, I'll invite you.
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I would love to be back with you whenever you want that. I found everything about this stimulating, enjoyable, and your questions were terrific. And I wish your daughter well, and all your family.
Thank you.
And all your loved ones.
Yes, thank you so much, and many blessings to you, and success in all of your endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.